Amidst the chaos of the zombie apocalypse, one man was left running away in the center of an infected city thinking that his life had become a living hell. However, Akira was a disgusting, lonely, isolated loser who wished he could have been living the hell on the screen because it would have still been heaven compared to his miserable office life. Before he knew it, he fell unconscious from all the sleep deprivation and wished that he would never have to wake up again. As he passes out 3 years earlier, we see Akira starting his new job at a production company. He introduces himself to everyone and he finds there is a good atmosphere among his colleagues. He is excited to get started, and we learn this as his dream job. The boss shows him to his desk and he is introduced to his department chief. He thinks about how he will be creating big commercials, thinking he might even meet celebrities along the way, and he even meets a cute girl after she bumped into him. He quickly helps her pick up her things and she introduces herself as Tori from accounting, telling him she is always happy to help and wishing him luck on his first day. After a long day of work, all the men celebrated Tendo's first day and were interested in the way he grew up. However, the only person who took his attention was Otori, who waved her grape juice at him and began swallowing a meaty stick. When he saw how cute she was, he swore that he would work hard to impress her. Before long, everyone was ready to leave for the night, but their lifeless faces said they were about to go back to work. They keep on working, and we see it's already 2 a.m. Akira thinks something is wrong, but his colleagues act like this is normal. He ends up pulling an all-nighter, even sleeping in the office. This continues to go on, and the next evening he wonders when he will be able to go home, ending up pulling another all-nighter until he is finally able to leave. 2 days later, he gets home exhausted, collapsing on his bed and realizing he's being exploited by the company. He wakes up at 6 a.m., barely functioning, and he starts wishing he didn't have to work. He snaps himself out of it, thinking he just needs to suck it up and work hard, seeing it as the job he's always wanted. As he heads into work, we learn that their company has good employee policies like annual paid vacations and even mental health days, but it turns out no one has ever used them, and they even compete to see who has the most unpaid overtime. Akira's senior treats him to dinner, but even though he has been working there for 5 years, he is severely underpaid. His colleagues all seem to have developed health issues, and we also see that the chief is quite temperamental, often berating them and even causing some of them to cry. But despite all this, Akira makes it to his 2nd year. His health starts to get worse and his hygiene starts to suffer, and he gets told his colleague just quit so he has to take over his work. He dreads having to pull another all-nighter, but Tori cheers him up, bringing him some food because she noticed he was too busy working. She was the only person who kept him sane this entire time because he'd been secretly crushing on her since the first day they met. But she gets called away by the boss and we learn she's his mistress. Akira's smile faded away and the entire world snapped back to reality because he could hear all the plots she was developing with the CEO. The plot-filled noises were nearly driving him to incentive. Akira gets off work super late, and he wonders why he is still working for the company. He thinks about getting another job, but he thinks he has no time to look for one, work in his 3rd year. He deals with an impossible client who demands they rewrite the scenario to add the director's nephew. Akira says it's impossible, mentioning they have already been through 5 revisions, but the client threatens to take his business elsewhere and Akira has no choice but to try and make it work. He knows they don't have the budget to make the changes, and he starts to reach his breaking point and things are just as bad in the office. He thinks about ending it all so that he doesn't need to worry about work anymore. He makes it back home, continuing to work, and we see there is a report about an outbreak as he eventually passes out wishing he could just not wake up. But his alarm goes off the next day and he mindlessly prepares to go to work. He notices he has an unpaid bill, so he goes to find the building manager. He doesn't answer his door and Akira thinks he's going to be late for work. When he finds him, the manager has become a zombie and Akira takes a moment to realize what's going on. The manager goes after him and he quickly runs away, but there are even more zombies that start chasing after him. As he runs, a door opens in front of him and he runs right into it. He realizes everyone has become a zombie. He thinks he's going to be late for work, but as he gets outside, he sees everything is in chaos, but all he can think about is the fact he doesn't need to go to work anymore. He realizes he is finally free as he jumps away from the zombies, keeps on running, thinking how his world was just darkness, but he's finally able to see how colorful the world is. Celebrating his day off work, he makes it over a fence, having a chance to relax, and he wonders what he should do. He thinks about going on holiday, going skydiving, or just binging on some movies. He thinks he can finally do the things he has always wanted to do. He suddenly thinks about Tori, wondering if she is safe even though she has a thing with the boss. Akira decides to confess the feelings he has had for her, not wanting to have any more regrets. He rides his bike through the city while dodging the zombies, and he manages to make it to her apartment thanks to using the company emergency contact list. He reaches her door but starts to get cold feet, thinking she will find him creepy for showing up at her house, but he reasons he is just checking up on her. He finds her door is unlocked till he calls out for her, but he notices the shoes of another man. He sees his boss in front of him, but he starts transforming into a zombie. Akira confronts his boss about how he was treated at the company, announcing his resignation. As he tackles his boss and pushes him out of the window, His boss splatters down below and he notices Tori in the next room. However, he's too late. She's already turning into a zombie. Akira confesses his feelings about how he has been in love with her ever since the first day they met, but she lunges at him as he runs away, saying goodbye to his first love. At night, Akira gets some supplies from the 7-Eleven. He thinks he is dreaming, never having to go to work again. He feels liberated after his confession, thinking he could die at any time and that there's never enough time to do all the things he wants. So he gets a notebook to write down 100 things he wants to do before he dies. Sitting back inside his office, Akira's boss screamed that his fever is meaningless because no one is going to leave until this job is finished, not until they were dead. He continued screaming at Akira to finish already, and Akira woke up screaming, but realized that he was no longer inside of his office and that he never has to go to work ever again. As he got up and went outside his room, he screamed good morning to the entire world, because starting today, he's going to be spending 3 years of vacation enjoying all of his life. He began throwing his trash bags on top of the ugly zombies, vacuumed his home, hung up all his clothes, and even cleaned the toilet. It was 3 years worth of cleaning that he finally finished, and he thought that this was the first time in years that he's felt this good, and he cracks open a beer, finally able to enjoy himself. He can't believe how good it feels to skip work and just have a beer in the morning, thinking this must be what heaven feels like. We see a news report of the chaos around the city, and there are fires everywhere. We see the reporters struggling, and we learn that the internet and all telecommunications are down. There has also been no word from the government, and the broadcast gets cut abruptly. Akira wonders what will happen in the future, but he decides to just relax and drink for the day. He wants to embrace his inner degenerate, but he becomes shocked when he realizes he is all out of beer. He thinks it's the worst timing because he just wanted to slack off, but now he'll have to go to the store. He looks out to the street, seeing all the zombies, and he thinks it's going to be a huge pain. But he thinks about the sweet taste of his beer and decides he has no choice but to go out. Meanwhile, we meet another couple. As they are trapped in their apartment, they realize no one is coming to save them, so they wonder what they're going to do. The man thinks they can hold out, but the woman thinks it's the end of the world. The man wishes someone could help them, and he suddenly sees Akira climbing down the drain. The man is shot seeing him, and the woman rushes out. She also panics seeing him, and Akira explains that the stairwell in his building was filled with zombies, so he was just getting past. The man invites him in, saying their apartment is still safe, but Akira declines, saying he is headed out. He introduces himself to them, saying he lives in the building next door, and the man introduces himself as Kosaka. Akira mentions he's headed to the store, and he wonders if they want anything. Kosaka asks him to bring back some food, and the woman asks for toilet paper. The zombies chase after him as he rides his bike, and he thinks they have grown in number. Even though he's on a bike, he thinks he'll be in trouble if he gets surrounded, but decides he would rather be eaten than go without another beer. He makes it over to the 7-Eleven, but there is another bike with a camera on it, and it seems he is being watched. Akira sings to himself, excited to get another beer, but he suddenly sees there is another person in the store. He is surprised to see a cute girl and gets embarrassed, thinking she must have heard him singing. He doesn't want to scare her like he did to Kosaka, so he decides to play it cool, trying to make some small talk. He mentions how he ran out of beer, but the girl just walks away. She hears a horn going off in the distance, and Akira catches up to her. He calls their meeting a coincidence, and he asks to exchange contact info. The girl checks her phone looking at what's going on with her camera, and she takes note of what Akira is buying. She thinks he is risking his life for something non-essential, saying he doesn't know how to assess risk, so she doesn't want to team up with him, thinking he would only lower her chances of survival. At that moment, there are zombies that get into the store, and Akira rushes to protect her, but the girl suddenly pulls him back as a truck suddenly comes crashing through. Akira is stunned looking at the girl, but she gets up first, leading him on the floor. Akira tries to thank her, but he finds her riding off while his bike was destroyed. He thinks about what she said about analyzing risk, but he finds her pretty cool, wondering if he will see her again. A zombie starts to approach him, and he wonders how he's going to get back without his bike. However, he gets lucky and ends up finding a scooter. As he rides back, he remembers how the outbreak happened during rush hour, so there are plenty of bikes and scooters just lying around with the keys still in them. He wonders if he can get an even better bike, and he ends up swapping to a motorbike. He drives into a car door, causing him to go flying in the air, but he lands it, and he is eventually able to make it back to his apartment. As he climbs up the drain pipe, he thinks it was a productive day, having stocked up on his beer and having met a cute girl. He makes it to Kosaka's level, telling them to join him for a drink, but he sees that they are gone and there is only a scene of carnage at night. Akira drinks by himself, thinking he could die at any time. He thinks life is too short to avoid taking risks, and he starts writing in his notebook the things he wanted to do as a kid. He crosses off the things he's done so far, like confessing to a girl, drinking beer all day, and riding a motorbike. He keeps on writing his list, but he only manages to write 30 things. He thinks about what he really wants to do, and he is happy to be able to add 3 more things. He wants to see his parents, spend time with his best friend, and meet the woman of his dreams. We go back to the start of the day, where we see how the girl Akira met started her day. She watches the same broadcast, but after her morning run, we see she takes a number of different supplements. She tries to make contact with her office and but she has no luck, so things appear to be quite dire. But she makes a list of what she needs to survive. She observes the zombies with her binoculars, finding that there are two types, either walking or running. She takes note of the number of each type, and she thinks that being able to identify the type of zombie that you encounter will dramatically increase the odds of survival against it. She decides she needs to get supplies before the number of zombies increase, and she even plans to see which neighborhood is the safest. She arrives at the 7-Eleven setting up her camera, and she starts gathering the things that she needs. She is tempted by a sweet, but she stops herself, thinking it's not essential. Sees Akira approaching, surprised there is another survivor as he tries to talk to her. She can see that he has zombies following him, so she thinks she needs to get out as soon as possible. She doesn't think much of him, wondering how someone like him even managed to survive. She hears the car horn in the distance, thinking it will attract even more zombies. She tries to plan her escape, but she realizes the truck has gone out of control. As the truck ends up crashing through, she thinks it's the perfect time for her to escape. She makes it back to her apartment, glad that she managed to get all of her supplies. She analyzes the zombies that she encountered along the way, but she sees Akira again, wondering how he could be so happy about a beer when they are in such a state of emergency. She thinks back to the suite that she left behind, wishing that she could have grabbed it. But we see she also has a list, but it's a list of 100 things to do so she doesn't become a zombie.